My name is Leroy. I wear a few hats. One of the things I do is with 43 Ventures. We're a group of business partners, private investors who help early stage startups who purpose is to tackle some social issues through technology. So that's what we do. We do that through financial capitals as well as just helping them, guiding them through in the early stage, which we think is actually very important. Money is always important, but the initial help is something that we see we can add value to it. The other thing I do is a young management consulting company called YCP. And what we do is we help more traditional business. They help them to grow business across the region as well as building sort of derivative business based on what they do. And that is one of the things that I want all of you to start thinking. I think a lot of times when we talk about startups, we have a very fixated view on what startup is. You know, a couple of college kids, they do some sort of programming and then they conquer the world. Yes, I mean, that's one part of that startup world, but there are a lot of it. For example, even the traditional sort of business expansion. I think a lot of that, we can use a lot of the new ideas in terms of startup, entrepreneurship. I think the two worlds needs to be combined together a lot more rather than sort of, you know, those are looked at as completely different things. Okay, so one of the things that we do at 43 Ventures, as I said, so we meet a lot of entrepreneurs, startups, and one of the topics I was asked to talk about is, you know, we've seen, not just in Hong Kong, I think generally, people changing their careers. As Charles mentioned, I was a partner with a consulting firm. I make the switch. So who are these people? I think we're seeing more people who want to get into this startup world, obviously college students, but we're seeing more people with a few years of experience in investment banking, management consulting, but also we're seeing all the way to people who recently retired. And all these people, the way they want to get involved is slightly different. For example, someone who just comes out of college, they want to do their own things, and whereas, for example, someone who recently retired will probably have some sort of fund and they want to do something, but probably they need help to execute that. So to us, we see that as the whole entire ecosystem rather than sort of very specific group of people. And I think that's what we need to change, have a different view of what entrepreneurship is and what startup is. It's not just one particular group of people. Why the change? A lot of people ask me, you know, how do you make the switch? Everyone's different, I think. It's hard to say, but I think generally following on to what Simon mentioned, and a little bit of what Caesar mentioned as well, the whole thing about purpose, I really think that has been something that has changed. Yes, we can talk about the economy and all that, but I think fundamentally you hear a lot more people, not just talking, but they really see different values, a change in their value system. They want to do something that they want to do. More importantly, they want to do something that is relevant to the society that they live in. And I think that is common. We're seeing more and more from all ages, not just young people, but everyone across the group. And I think that is exciting to see. What has been the most challenging thing, I think, to change, you know, get into a different thing for me is you know, always people talk about getting out of your comfort zone, right? I think that's important, but what does that mean? I think it means building your new networks, your new connections. You're almost starting from scratch. You're meeting new people. But I think one of the toughest thing, and I'll encourage, we all try to do that regardless of whether you're changing fields or not, is to get involved in a new area. One of the things, for example, when I started being mentors for startup, so I started doing that. Now I look back, I think I was horrible at the first ones or first fields because I was so used to some of the concepts and mindset that I had when I run a big sort of consulting firms. But I think a lot of times when you get into a new field, one of the things that, apart from sort of relearning, the word is unlearning. Sort of forget about some of the stuff that we know, we're so used to, that we know, oh, this has to be the way, there are no other ways. I think it's important for us to change that. I think that's one of the things that could be quite challenging. Okay, just very quickly, I know we're running sort of on time. The other area that we get asked a lot is, how do you get money? Where do you get money? And there were questions about, is it easy for startups to find funding in Hong Kong? And again, I believe Simon says that in a meeting we had last week. First of all, I think the funding platform, a lot of it, I don't think we should look at it like Hong Kong startups and it'll be like Hong Kong funding. The world has changed. It's so much flatter. Overseas VCs want to come to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong investors, China investors want to go overseas. So it's not like it has to be local. So I think that's the first thing. And the second thing is, I really believe in, and this is a bit of cliche, but it's important that good startups get money. So focus on what you do rather than focus on finding money. And I mean, it sounds easy, but really that's really important when we talk about funding. Lots of money, I think for the startups, I think one of the things they get wrong is they think when they get funded, Series A, Series B, they immediately get extremely rich. And I try to tell people, no. You don't get rich, you get more responsibility. You should get excited about it because that means you have more resources to do what you want to do all along. But it doesn't automatically guarantee wealth in all sorts of perspective. Another thing is I always encourage startups when they take money from investors, think of it as not what I call external money. It should be almost treated as your money, maybe your parents' money. It's like your money. Like every cent that you spend, you should feel like it's your own money. It shouldn't be, I just got this money from this investor, great, I can just start hiring people. If you are never going to hire those people, you should not hire those people, no matter you got the money or not. So I think that is important to have that very clear sense of, accountability of the money that you get. I think that's one thing that we've seen. It's more than money. The other thing that we always tell startups when they talk to investors like ourselves is it should be beyond money. I know sometimes, it's tough for startups to get money, but there's money out there. I hate to say that, but there's money out there. So find the investors who can help you, who knows the industry, who you like him, and he likes you, he has to like you to invest in you. But that mutual relationship is important. I know sometimes, especially in this part of Asia culture, we have thinking of, we're getting money from people, so, But no, it has to be mutual. And I think it's important to have that mutual relationship, especially early stage investment. To me, as much as investing and also about learning as well. As crazy as it sounds, but it is, because every startup is so different. It's about whether you want to get in there with them and so learn and get through that process. I think that is important as well. Okay, so what should people do to get investments? And I think the panel can add to that later on. But I think one of the first things is, the network, the connections, you have to start building, right? I mean, the network in Hong Kong is big, but it's not that big, right? So get some credibilities, get some exposures, make sure people know you in a good way. You want people to talk about you in a good way, build a good reputation. It's important that every people that you meet, you're building that reputation. In terms of investors, what we look for, we always say project, people is greater than the projects or the idea, right? We follow people more than the projects. And I think that is very important. When we look at it, we don't just look at the pitch, the deck, the ideas, it's the people behind it. And I guess one of the things that we feel like a lot of the presentation, people talk about the ideas, what they want to solve, the problems. They spend good half of the presentation on that, then sort of a solution to tackle that. But they don't talk about enough about their expertise. Why should be these people? Why should be the founders who go out and tackle these problems? Also about knowledge, I think it's important. It sounds crazy, but it's important for the founders to demonstrate knowledge. I mean, if you talk about fintech, I think one of the things that I think a lot of investors want to know is at least how much regulatory issues that you're aware of, right? It's important, right? It's not just, I'm going to build this one technology. And without the context of how the things work in in real world. And to be honest, startup, that is the thing, right? Startup is in the real world. Startup is not in this isolation place somewhere, but it's in the real world. And I think it's all of us here can help, and actually I encourage all of us to help. If you have time to spend with some of the startups, your knowledge and expertise will be much appreciated, or you can consider to be investors. I'm not promoting crowdfunding. I don't want to get myself into trouble, but I think every one of us can help that society, because I think it's integral to the future of our society. And that's what we believe in. I think the traditional market, if you look at all the banks or all the consulting firms, they approach it either from a purely financial perspective or from what I call talent, people perspective. And if you look at a lot of the newer industries, right, a lot of how people want to tackle some of these problems is really to combine both. It's not enough to just go in and say, we'll throw money at it, it's going to go away, or just throw people at it and problems will be solved. It's about how intelligently we can put those two things together, think of them as one rather than just two pieces or two completely different puzzles. And I think that will be the way forward. Thank you so much.